Welcome to another Founder Wisdom podcast. We have Melissa mcfarlane with us today. Melissa is founder, CEO at Creative Successful Entrepreneurs. She's a coach for creatives. She's been doing that for the past 17 years. It's going to be a fun podcast today because we're going to do a live coaching session. This pod is presented to you by my company. It's called podpar.com. If you want to start a podcast and scale the unconventional way, monetize, get a bunch of guests, leads, and even be interviewed at other podcasts, you can go to podpar.com. Melissa, welcome to the pod. Tell me a bit more about yourself and your business.
Charles, it's so nice to be here. Love your businesses. You're amazing. So many. And Podpire, what a great name for a company. Just love that. You mentioned I've been in the business for 17 years. I've actually been coaching for about 30, a little bit over 30 years now. And the 17 years part is the second coaching capability set that I added after I worked for a long time in corporate and with individuals in life coaching, sort of that personal professional arena, and then became an entrepreneur and looked at how to support entrepreneurs through business coaching and develop my own model based on all the things I thought were missing that combines the two skill sets. Life, just a general ability to dialogue. It's really one of our superpowers over here. All businesses are to support a life. So we work with our coaches to train them how to not only be life coaches, personal professional coaches, but to also support a business owner in their life issues so that they can break through in their businesses. So that's what the 17 years is about on the 30. That's a little bit about me.
Started as an actress as well, Chicago theater scene. And after that, you never really had a job. I think you always started your own businesses. So were you born for entrepreneurship, or is that something you created in yourself?
I was a child of a man in the military. My father was a Marine. And, the standard thing in a military life is to move around a lot. But he was very entrepreneurial inside of a military world in that he chose a pathway and got a master's degree and then ended up staying in the Washington, D.C. area for a very long time, really. So I had a lot of stability. But that entrepreneurial spirit of you can break the mold, you can go outside of the required routine, even in a military format, I think probably was laid down pretty early. And there was a whole other set of guiding principles around how to live and what to want and how to live into service and impact in the world for yourself and for others. So I think that, it was just in the blood from early on. I didn't know I wanted to be an entrepreneur, but I did know I wanted freedom. And so acting was very much, I was the black sheep in the family. Then when I wanted to have children and still not have to go back and have a job, I still wanted to be able to have a creative life. I looked at what was the skill set that I could do in my pajamas, et cetera. And coaching came up. I had a friend who said, "You're already coaching everyone anyway. Why don't you learn how to do it?" I did that. I was in a business, my first business that I had created at a point, which was leveraging those acting skills to help people to present themselves and get out into the world, especially folks that suddenly found themselves having to give presentations and things. And what kept happening was that in order to get them to be ready and able to be confident to communicate to their teams or to something else, the world at large, they had to deal with all sorts of internal issues. So I was intuitively navigating that. And I created this little business called Speak for Yourself Enterprises. I did not know what I was doing, but I created a little crappy little brochure and the whole thing. And then I went out and got those clients. And as I was doing that, someone said, you could be a really good life coach. You should do that. I said, I don't want to do that. I don't want to tell people what to do. They said, that's not what coaching is. And so I was in the third graduating body at the Coaches Training Institute, which is one of the preeminent training organizations now in the world for coaching. But I was there right when they were getting started. People thought we were like physical trainers or whatever. Nobody knew what a life coach was. So, and I don't love the term, actually, life coach. It gets a lot of grief, but that is how I started. Yes, I have an entrepreneurial spirit, a little bit more background there.
And you just broke a leg. What's the psychological reaction to get over that?
You know, I was on the phone with a client this week and we were looking at what's in between, like, what are all the tools that we need and what's next for him. And there's this sort of interstitial tissue that goes in between all the values. Let's say we list out values for a client, or we find their life goals, these big, guiding outcomes like being able to fund adventure for myself and others. That's what we would call a life goal, right? So we get these toeholds for our clients, and then there's the how we experience life, how we live into life. And I was trying to explain it to him because it was intuitive. I'm like, I just think that's the next place here. We need that thing. Trying to find the words for it. I said, it's how we be as we're going towards these things, how we experience. Maybe it's a guiding principle. Maybe it's, uh, a code for ourselves. And he said, okay, I get it. What's yours? And I was like, oh, he said, for example, with the leg. And so you're asking again. And Charles, I had this response to the leg that was really, I did not expect it. I was really flattened by it at first. I had incredible rage. I was so angry, which is not normal for me. Like it just kept coming. And then I had this huge grief, and I'm on a precipice of a big year, a decade year this year. And I was excited about the year. And he asked me that question. And I thought, well, that's interesting, because I finally kind of got a hold of myself and said, Melissa, you are full of rage and you are full of grief. What's going on? This is not how you want to live any more seconds of your day, but you're still waking up this way. And I was teetering on depression, which is really not who I am at all. Like, I just don't go there. I've been actually depressed maybe once in my life, late 20s, right? For a year, maybe. So I was so grateful that he held my feet to the fire on that. Because what came forward was, I live to grow life. I think that's what we're all here for. All of us are just looking to feel what it's like to expand and to do that until it stops, So that's a guiding principle for me. And immediately I was out of that, like, total rage. I'm still working through like, well, okay, what's the anger? What was that about? And the grief and all of that. But the actual hold it had on me, that guiding principle can just punt us out of there. So I appreciate you asking me that as well. Yeah, to grow life, for me, for the world, to expand. That is a guiding principle for me. And it helps me really manage my behavior and my thoughts. Is that going to grow anything that you want? No, no.
I had like similar reactions, but for stupid things like losing an iPhone and losing a drone last year, like the last month. So, and then I did this Spartan race, and I wore shorts and I got like poison ivy on all my legs. That was kind of interesting. So like all at once, but we let's do like a life coaching session. It to something that's actual, because you mentioned to me today, like pre-call, and that you're amazing, and it seems to me that I can't like take positive feedback like that in my brain. I think, and yeah, the reason, or not sure if I built myself that way, because sometimes you get hate or negative feedback as someone that's successful, and I can block that now, but it seems that I also block the positive, so like I can't take negative in and I can't take positive in. Is that a good thing? And if not, like, how can I open my heart to good positive feedback and let the negative out?
You're so neat. Um, yeah, Charles, I hope we stay friends a long time. You're a very interesting person. Um, so is it a bad thing? And all of the other questions that you just asked, one of the uh, training pillars that I find really critical for progress with coaching is the concept of reference point. Is it good or bad? Depends on what we're doing, right? Depends on what you want, depends on how you want to live. You mentioned to me before we got going here today that you are living your best life in a mountain town, and you're just living now how so many folks would hope to eventually live someday. And so holidays are not that important because it's always a holiday for you. You mentioned that. So there's some information in here. So Charles, I'm curious about what is guiding you, because that is a reference point, like I mentioned earlier. So what is it that, and let me be more specific to help us and do it quickly here today. So, what about not receiving positive feedback, not being able to, and when you say receive it, I'm understanding you might hear it, but you don't really let it do anything to you. Can you describe two more, a sentence or two more about what happens when someone says something?
Yeah, not sure if it's always been that way, but it's also like being a contrarian and really embracing and embodying the fact that I'm pretty much alone on this mountain, and very few people will ever understand this reality of mine. So that's like weighing down some feedback. That's one. Two is maybe like protecting myself from people that give feedback just to make you feel better, just to obtain an outcome out of you. Not saying you're doing that. Maybe some people do that. Maybe I even do that as a master persuader, and don't even realize that. And the
What's
third,
the
the third would
cost?
be the hate one, like just putting a shield on my heart to block out the hate, but also blocking the good stuff from coming in.
Yeah. So I heard issues of control, um, not being able to control something if you let it in, what it will do for you or what it will take from you. I heard trust, and some sort of collapsement that I need to be able to trust in the verity of the comment if I'm gonna take it in. And again, back to control, if I like, I don't have a choice of taking it. If I listen to it and take it in, then it's going to run the show for me somehow in a way that I don't want to give that much agency over, something like that. Does any of that resonate, first of all?
Yeah, well, the trust thing, I've reflected on that like yesterday. It seems that I trust way less than I did before, maybe because some people that I let in my circle betrayed that, namely employees. I fired all my employees last year, which was a good decision in hindsight, just like dealing with AIs, but it has a bit of negative consequences too. And yeah, the trust thing, and also the control thing, which I think is somewhat related to it, to
Yes.
always have control. I try not to be a controlling individual, but yeah,
Well, there's a
I also
difference.
realize that, yeah, I'd love to control some things, especially when it concerns only me, right?
Right. Well, if there's a distinction between controlling others and trying to control an outcome that is a group outcome, or a several people, one person, two people outcome, and trying to have personal agency, which is not only, I think, everyone's right slash also responsibility. It's, no one can live your life but you. So taking charge of that and really having that agency to, or that requiring that of yourself and making sure to protect it is a really healthy thing. So control of others, not so much. Control of oneself, absolutely. And there is a gray area there, like where am I going to lose control? So that comes down to capability. I hear control, but also capability. That when we have the capability, Charles, so I guess if I were to ask a coaching question of you, what capability is missing, or what do you think you would need to strengthen in order to be able to hear anything, let it in, feel if it's right or not, choose if it can serve your sense of your pathway, whether it can serve you, stay separate from it, even if it's in, even if you let it in. What kind of, you know, strength do you think or skill set is missing there or would be helpful for you to be able to hear something without losing control or experiencing betrayal?
Right. Well, I subscribe a lot to David Goggins' philosophy nowadays, which is pretty testosterone and yeah, not much EQ based, but that doesn't mean I can have parts of that philosophy. And just like I have a cookie jar for hate, that I just put all the hate in there on my desktop literally, and I look at it and laugh, or it motivates me. Well, maybe I should have a cookie jar for positive things that I receive. Not that I need that, but yeah, it seems that I am anchoring too much of my identity into this testosterone stuff, and being hard all the time. So maybe just, yeah, like
Well,
taking this and planting seeds in my positivity garden. Who knows?
we would have to, or we could ask if if we had lots of time, we might dive into what are you missing when you don't take it in. When that stuff sits there in that jar, is there, and not just feel good. It sounds like part of it you can do without, but I am curious, for example, when people are truthful, and even if they're saying it to blow smoke up your skirt, so to speak, they can't find the thought if it isn't there somehow. Like it there's something there. So what if it were true can be an easy game. And why would that be helpful to your goal? Back to that reference point. What are you trying to do in the world? And if someone tells you that thing you just did was really good, or I really like X, Y, and Z, and you look at the goal you've got, is there any way in which hearing that specific bit of feedback, or if you distrust it, going back to the source and saying, hey, I like that, thanks. You might be blowing smoke up my skirt, but tell me a little more. What do you mean about what you like? And why is it valuable to you, really? And either they can fall off and say, I don't know, I was just being nice. Or you've already in 5 minutes made me realize there's so much bigger way that I can think just by the way you're living. I just think that's pretty impressive. That helped me. That's information for you if that's your goal, or if you have a goal. Is that what you wanted? So there's info there. I wonder if getting comfortable, or the baby out with the bathwater, or something stuck in a jar, that's good. You can put it in a jar, I think, because then we can take it out again, back to control and agency. We can take it out when we want and look at it and do it with it what we want. Maybe not just ignoring it forever. To have the choice or the options. And so I'm curious about if you lose anything by ditching being able to listen to the good, and frankly to the bad. If someone is hating on you, what is the world in which hearing good or hearing bad? This is, by the way, back to acting. They always tell you, don't read your good reviews and don't read your bad reviews. Or if you're going to read the good ones, read the bad ones. And some people would say never read the bad ones, but really, what would it be to just show up to the character and never let that external thing interfere with the original intent, which is to communicate that persona and that story into the world for others to live with, without your own imprint, without your own decision. So, am I able to be as good of an actor if I can only let in the good news, if I can only let in the bad, or if I never listen to any of it? Can I be as good at anything? Fill in the blank. Those are questions that may be relevant.
Right. If my goal is to spread love out there and help people, especially in their tough moments, I think I need to be able to take in the compliments and, yeah, have a positive cookie jar, so that when I'm in pain, which inevitably comes sooner or later, I can pull out these cookies subconsciously. It doesn't even need to be conscious, and just remind myself of my best selves. Or, yeah, that's
You
quite
can
helpful
stay on
there.
purpose. Yeah, so you can stay on purpose.
We're already
Especially
out of
when
time.
you're
That
alone
was
on the mountain.
quite short. But yeah, thanks for that. Where can people find out more about you, Mel?
You're asking, or you're telling them to? Are you asking me?
Yeah, like where can people find out more about you online?
Yeah, so they can go to creativesuccessfulentrepreneurs.com. It's a pretty big, long word, and I think our actual URL is hyphenated, creative-successful-entrepreneurs. They can look up various programs like Seize Your Dream, SEIZE, Your Dream, which is a good sort of life and business and personal planning process and things like that. And those are two good ways, or Melissa McFarlane, business coach, life coach, and they'll find all of our team, our certifications and all of that. Ultimately they'll find that as they nose around in there. Yeah.